This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All righty, we are back. Thank you. Appreciate all of you out there, as always, keeping it locked. By the way, the market is absolutely flying. I'm loving it. I'm sure Ira's just like me, heavily invested in the crypto market. Bitcoin's up to 43,600. I told you, if it gets to 43, 44, we're going parabolic. Here we go. Ira, now that you walk into FTX Arena, you got yourself a little crypto, right? You're getting on the bandwagon finally, right?
Actually, Big O, my electric bill has been way up. I'm actually mining my own currency now.
There you go. Now that's smart.
So anyone who is interested, Windercoin is low now, but I think if you get in early, you'll be in good shape. Apparently, FPL is wondering what the hell is going on here. My electric bill has gone from 400 to 43,000 a month, but I think in the end, it'll be worth it.
You haven't called Tesla for a little solar power, so that way it's clean energy that you're mining with? Come on, what's wrong with you?
Us in the non-fungible field, we like to keep those proprietary, so I really can't get into that, Big O.
I love it.
In other words, I thought I wouldn't be mentioning at 10:30 in the morning on a Monday.
Well, hey, listen, I'm happy. Those of us invested, we're really happy because right now the market is absolutely exploding. By the way, before I forget, on Saturday, because we got a new move now. It's called the wide lane Euro step. And did you see Caleb Martin on Saturday? That was the wide lane Euro step I've ever seen in my life. He went from one side of the paint to the other of the key. That was awesome.
Even my wife said to me, "Didn't they used to call that traveling?" It's just funny how they've reinvented the word traveling into Euro step, so now it's okay. And how it is.
Wide lane Euro step too. Okay.
If you give food a foreign name and it sounds that much better, but it's still a travel.
Oh man, that was awesome. Yes, on Saturday night as the boys got the win, and so Spo. Spo is Spo, right? There's no tanking in Spo. He's going to coach his ass
There
off.
isn't, and I'm sure he was the biggest Billy Donovan and Bulls fan yesterday, wanting Chicago to win. I actually watched that game. They got within 6 late. Philly's just the better team right now.
They're playing good right now, man. Yeah, they're playing good.
Matter of fact, I think people need to stick on the Big O show for later today. I know that Big O and his staff are efforting Nikki Spoelstra to get her thoughts on being in Cleveland on February 20th. So I think that'll be some good radio also.
Oh God, yeah. So, does Jimmy play it or does he take it off? How's he going to handle that? Because he's a guy that really needs the time off. And I know you said it's a whole week, but still, God.
He'll play, Big O, because the only thing that drives someone more than wanting to get to a warm weather locale on February 20th is ego. And for Jimmy Butler to be among other stars and to be in that showcase, that'll mean more to him than losing 2 or 3 days on the beach. And now it's interesting, because we get back to this. We know that Jimmy Butler was the driving force behind Kyle Lowry coming here. Of course, Kyle Lowry is the godfather to Jimmy's daughter. So is this when Jimmy and Eric Spoelstra get together and go, who are we going to target among these all-stars? Because the one thing about the NBA, they never think the Heat tamper. They never investigate the Heat for that. So I think it'll be interesting. I think the most important thing is, can Jimmy come home with a friend from the All-Star game?
Well, who's the disgruntled one? That's the question,
right?
You know what I mean?
It'll be for the off season because the trading deadline is February 10th. The All-Star game is the 20th, but this will set up next summer, so it'll be interesting. So I'm sure Jimmy will have his conversation.
Trade was a precursor, by the way, for moving the Portland trade. Do you think that's a precursor for moving Lillard?
I think that might be more of a telling Lillard we're going to be able to get under the tax and have more flexibility in the offseason. And Lillard really has made clear he doesn't want to go anywhere. He wants to be one of those few career players. Now, is it a precursor for moving CJ McCollum? I'm totally on board with that.
Okay.
Because this BS of the James Harden thing. And again, it's interesting. When you used to do your, shows and getting a lot of national people talking about stuff, there's such manipulation when these rumors start. So is it really that there ever was a deal, or is it sort of Ben Simmons people saying, hey, there is a deal to be made, and putting stuff out? And again, all these guys, this from your football coverage, and whether it's Adam Schefter or someone else, there's such a quid pro quo. I'll put this out there for you if you take care of me when something else with one of your clients comes up. So I think Philadelphia is not in the position of, well, at the end of the day, we'll just trade, Ben Simmons for James Harden. But I think it's a case now they might circle back and look at some other stuff because Philly's really good. And Joel Embiid, who will be MVP, I think has a chance to take that team far with one more player. And if it's someone as simple as a CJ McCollum, that could be a game changer. So I think it's funny. From day one of camp, day one of the season, day one of the trading deadline, it's still a Ben Simmons show.
No, I'm with you there. And for Bledsoe, poor guy never gets a chance to really start and all. I know he's had his injuries and all that, but it's been kind of one of those careers for him.
Well, you know what? Let's take closer to home. How about Justice Winslow, now on his fourth team in less than 2 years? And I wrote about this in my...
He's incredibly unreliable, so that's the problem there.
He's incredibly limited. He's incredibly limited in a sport where you have to be a shooter, and they thought at worst he'd be a 3 and D, except he never got the 3 part. He's shooting 18% on threes this season. At some point you have to say we blew it. Because again, who was taking 3? I'm going to put you on the spot here, Big O. Who went 3 spots after Justice Winslow? Hate to do this to you.
Oh God.
Phoenix Suns. DB. Devin
Booker. Yes.
Devin Booker. That's something like, look, we love to praise the Heat for the development, for mostly finding the right players. Honestly, if you look back, Big O, to 2015, the Heat never brought Justice Winslow in for an interview because Justice Winslow never thought he was going to go as late as number 10. And I think that's the classic case of going for the name Tua. In other words, when you go for the name Tua, you wind up sometimes going for the hot thing instead of something you've researched. And I think the Heat got caught up in that. I think it's a case of, wait, Justice Winslow is here at number 10. Well, we never talked to him, but he's Justice Winslow, and Coach K is vowing for him. At the end of the day, he's going to, you know what Justice Winslow is? He's a Tim Tebow of basketball, a great college player whose game never translated to the NBA. Now we'll see if Tua does. Another story, another day with your 9,000 football guests.
Yes, exactly. Well, he will translate. It's just he needs the right people around him. Unfortunately, that's the thing. We'll see if McDaniel is the right guy. I will say this: besides Caleb doing the Euro wide step. It was funny watching him and his brother after the game too. It just, damn, dude, it was like they have the same haircut and everything.
Same everything. And actually, Caleb went to the game on Friday night because Charlotte had a back-to-back at home. They went out to dinner after. They are incredibly close. And it was incredibly difficult. Caleb said, not to be on the same team. We're talking same high school, starting North Carolina State together for 2 years, transferring together to Gonzaga, coming into the NBA together with the Hornets. So this really is the first time they're apart. And the one thing I'm seeing, whether it's Marcus Morris having Markieff Morris's back when he went through his stuff, and Caleb and Cody, is you can really see some of these brothers are incredibly close and incredibly tight. But I think even like Eric Reed mentioned on the broadcast, sometimes you need to step out of your comfort zone to become a little bit better. It reminds me of the move. I don't know if you heard of this guy, but Orlando Alzugaray left terrestrial radio to do a real radio show on his terms. I think Cody and Caleb have been better players by being apart because they've gotten out of their comfort zone.
Damn right. Averaging over 80,000 downloads a day, baby. Nobody at QAM even comes close to that. So, yes, you are correct. No doubt about that. So, nice job by Caleb. Bam had a hell of a day. Butler played well. Duncan, it's just, is that what we're stuck with this year? We're just stuck with the guy that is not ever going to be consistent this year?
Well, Big O, and I wrote about this in my Ask Ira at sunsentinel.com, as long as he has enough reminder games. So, okay. He had the 1 for 7 on threes.
You're lowering the bar every single time.
I am, but I'm saying he had the 1 for 7 on threes, 1 for 9 from the field in Charlotte. But remember, two nights earlier, he was 4 of 8 in San Antonio. So it's sort of like guard him or don't guard him at your own risk. Because again, just as it's frustrating for me, for you, and probably for the Heat, the inconsistency, the fact is you never know when he's going to have a great game or an awful game. And like you and I said in our Acura Pembroke Pines report on Friday, if you could just even that out and just give him 2.5, 3 3-pointers per game instead of these wild fluctuations, it would be easier to make it work. But as long as you have guys making threes, it doesn't matter who. So it had been Max Strus when Duncan was struggling. Saturday, it was Tyler Hero. As long as your spacing comes from somewhere, you're fine. If Tyler wasn't making those threes, it would have been more pronounced, and you and I would be talking about it more. But because they have Strus, because they have Hero, because they have Gabe Vincent, because they have Duncan, it's sort of, I don't know how much we use this phrase here, it's a poo-poo platter of three-point shooters. And as long as you get the right dim sum there, you're fine.
Okay, so now let me ask you a question that has all kinds of angles to it.
Sure.
So you're now sitting there, you're Spo, you're Riley, and the cap guy, damn it,
Andy Ellisberg.
Ellisberg. Okay, so now you got to think about all kinds of different layers to all of this because the fan just thinks of the player. Okay, so Duncan is struggling and not living up to his contract this year. So far, that's what we have to say through whatever it is, the 40-something games that they've played. He is not living up to it. Now, do we keep trying to showcase him and move him by the deadline? Or Coach Spo at one point or another, Ira, is going to have to draw the line in the sand and say, well, you know, Duncan, you either got to get consistent by this time or I got to start using somebody else that I know is more consistent and can help me in other areas, i.e. Caleb Martin or Strus or whatever, that give you a little something in other areas that Duncan gives you zilcho.
Well,
then the part two of this is why I'm telling you there's multiple layers to this. So you're the front office. You either, if you're afraid that you're never going to get that Duncan again, or you're nervous about it, and you don't end up showcasing him now, and he ends up taking a back seat in the second half of the season and into the playoffs, and he's not used as much, his trade value then declines, and it becomes harder to move that contract in the offseason. So you're kind of in a catch-22 if you're the Miami Heat. You have enough players to replace him. You have players that do what he does and other things. So do you try to move him? Do you keep showcasing him? Or do you risk losing value that down the line will be then harder to move and you won't get the same value in return that you could get still right now?
Few layers there to unwrap. And just like you follow at a higher tech level investments with your cryptocurrency, what the Heat follow is the NBA tracking stats. And the NBA tracking stats show, again, this is higher metrics, how close the average defender is to Duncan on every possession. And if he's still creating gravity, where one or two defenders is within X amount of feet, it makes it work for the Miami Heat. Now, you're right. If that goes away, he becomes perfect example tonight. The Heat are playing the Wizards and Davis Bertans, who's not playing at all now. He got a very similar contract. Very similar contract to Duncan Robinson. It's not paying off, so you have that. Here's part B of this, though. This is a team that's starting a 36-year-old power forward in P.J. Tucker and a 35-year-old point guard in Kyle Lowry. They're living in the moment, Big O. So you're right. You might say to yourself, if we move Duncan, we could help us with the tax. We might get a draft pick, get out of draft pick sort of prison where we are right now, and set up our future better. But is it about the future for the Miami Heat? In other words, Big O, if you are in first place in your conference and you know that for whatever reason this lineup works, Bam Adebayo is a better Bam Adebayo when Duncan Robinson is on the floor. The stats show that. Jimmy Butler is a better Jimmy Butler when Duncan Robinson is on the floor. The stats show that also. Do you play it out year by year? You know, the one thing, sports fans are weird.
Why wouldn't you be just as effective with Strus or Caleb Martin playing?
Because those metrics that I'm telling you will show you that defenders do not track Max Strus as closely because there is no metrics breakdown that shows that your lineup is as efficient with Max Strus as it is with Duncan Robinson. You have a history there. You have 2 years. You have the 2020 NBA Finals. So now you might say to yourself, yes, it might work as well, or it might not work as well. Do you want to take a chance with your 36-year-old power forward, your 35-year-old point guard, or do you want to say, screw the future? We'll deal with the problems when we have to. We are going to live in the moment right now because, Big O, this is a hell of a moment. They're in first place in their conference, and they are,
I get that. Yeah, I know what you're saying on the metric side, but what my eyes tell me is I don't think you miss a beat if you miss Duncan.
And that's fine.
Guys that can do what he can do.
And Big O, the fan who sits in front of his, TV with his cheese doodles and watches the game.
but you can create Caleb to become Duncan and Strus to become
okay,
Duncan.
but again, think
You
of
have
these
to give them the playing time. If they're on the bench, you'll never develop those stats that you're talking about.
Think of the qualifiers in every sentence you've given me. Could, might. There's still a chance. You don't know for sure. So with less than half the season left, knowing you have something that has proven to work, do you shake it up right now? I just hate this what's next from fans. Why do we need next? They never live in the moment right now. You and I were talking at the beginning of the Dolphins season when they had that terrible record, but you went through the Dolphins' upcoming schedule and you said, well, wait, they have the Giants, they have a couple against the Jets, and we didn't know about it, the Jaguars and games like that. This team still could be in the race when everyone else was writing off the season and already moving to the 2022 season. I think it's the same with the Heat. I think you have to. It's like you almost say to yourself, if by the trading deadline we've checked these boxes, do we have a proven successful starting lineup? Big O, they do. Are we seeded well for the playoffs? Hell, they're in first place. Pretty damn good seeding. They are. If our team goes completely unchanged after the deadline, will we still be in as good a position as anyone in our conference? I think the answer there is yes also. If you're checking all those boxes, as opposed to the, like Big O said, could or might, then you're willing to go out there and take a chance. Now, your could and might work if you have something out there that makes you definitively better in the moment also. Maybe there is a trade like that. Maybe it is Duncan for Christian Wood, because then you get your future starting power forward, but also a hell of a backup for PJ Tucker while you don't know what's going on with Markieff Morris. So if you were to bring that to the table for me, Big O, then I might go, you know what? I would consider that.
Washington tonight. Should be boys should be all right, right?
They lost 7 of 8. I actually wrote about this in my Ask Ira at sunsentinel.com today.
Built up their road record, bro. Come on.
Yeah, and also they've gotten rid of the bad losses. That I actually chronicled the bad losses for the Heat. I put down 3 of them. The loss at Sacramento, the loss at Detroit. There was one other I mentioned early in the season. You remember, Big O, by this time of the season, you and I are usually talking about how did they lose to Orlando? How'd they lose to the Knicks? How'd they lose to Detroit? They've gotten better. But here's something that scares the crap out of me, Big O, and you can deal with this in your chat board after. Right now, when you look at the standings and where the Nets are, the Nets could wind up being your number 8 seed or number 7 seed. Can you imagine, Big O? You have this kind of season. You win the conference. Pat Riley's ready for another banner. You go in the playoffs the week off, and then you're told Kyrie's been cleared to play at home. James Harden is still with the Nets. And Kevin Durant is healthy. Matter of fact, Big O, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know you like to get your listeners.
It's funny. I don't fear them.
You don't.
They don't play defense.
But you don't think in a best of 7 series.
Miami has the depth, the defense. They will wear those guys down. And in the playoffs, the game slows down. And it gets more physical, and they allow you to play a little bit more. So they will not be able to play that free-flowing game that they would like. So I actually don't fear the longer the season goes, the more I've gained confidence in the Heat because I didn't know this depth was going to exist. And now they're deeper than I think almost any team in the NBA right now.
I'm going to disagree with you, Big O, for one reason. Closing depth. End of a game, 1 possession. There is no doubt. Matter of fact, I'm going to close the internet to everyone. It's Durant. I'm not so sure right there that Kyrie might not be number 2, just for that moment, Big O, and that Harden might be number 3, even listing Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo. So what I'm saying is in a series like that, they would have the 3 best closers. They just would. So it's just
they would. I just don't think they'll be in that position often in that series. I think Miami will control that game and they'll be down by 7 or 8 or 9 points in most of those games by the end because they'll be worn down at that point. That's where I see it differently than you, because I think that Spo can come at them at waves where they're just 3 guys with a couple of misfits around them, and that's about it.
I'm going to send this clip to Old Takes Exposed. We have Big O on the record. The Heat will crush the Nets in the playoffs if they play each other, and we'll revisit this in late April or May.
Maybe 1 or 2 they'll win, but I don't think they'll make I don't think there'll be a series here because they have yet to. We keep putting them on a pedestal that they don't belong. You keep now putting them in a position that they've never performed at. We've never seen that kind of chemistry from them. We've never seen them actually do those kind of things. So why would we expect that? Plus, Kyrie has to prove that he can stay healthy. Durant has to prove that he can stay healthy. I mean, there's a lot of things that come to all of this with the Nets. I just don't.
Okay, and you know what? And this
I think they resemble more what they've been since they've been together than what everybody imagines they could be.
Okay, so this is perfect. So this is what we're going to do. If Big O is wrong on one of our Acura Pembroke Pines reports on a Friday when he's down there at the dealership, he will himself handle a free oil change for one listener when he's proven wrong, and you will have to dispose of your own oil. So that's good. It'll be a Friday show. We'll get to that.
All right, you got it. You got it. So bring your Acura in, and we will change the oil for you. Yep, there you go.
And folks, get the synthetic stuff. None of that cheap stuff from Big O.
That's right. That's right. Synthetic, baby. All right. Tell them what you're working on the Sun Sentinel, where they've got to subscribe, support, and check it out.
I just wrote a story on Chris Silva, and you might say to me right away, why the hell would I read a story on Chris Silva? And I wrote it this way. Chris Silva, for each of his 4 10-day contracts, the last one expires on Wednesday, is about $95,000. This is someone who came from Gabon, who, when he grew up, had to walk 25 miles to get water for his family, who lived in a home where he had a leaky roof. So you know what, Big O? Sometimes a little bit can go a long way. Now, I know to everyone else out there, $95,000 for 10 days seems ridiculous.
Yeah, but 4 of them, man, that's awesome for him. It's
right,
4.
but for someone like him, so I think it's a hell of a story. And I quote Eric Spoelstra in there. I interviewed him privately, and he said, look, we got a player because the player could help us. And he did in a couple of those games when they were shorthanded. But if you can do good by a good person, there's something that makes you feel good also. So I think at the end of the day, Chris Silva's last day with the Heat this season probably will be Wednesday, but they've done right by him and they've done right by his family half a world away. And you know what? That makes it a really nice story.
And he probably will end up in the G League, right, after that?
Yeah, you know what the average salary in the G League for the entire season is? $37,000 for a season. So these 10 days mean more to Chris Silva than maybe any other player on 10 days in the NBA. Spoke to Chris about it, spoke to Spo about it. I think it turned out pretty well. Check it out, sunsentinel.com, or tomorrow's paper at your doorstep. I will be delivering it personally.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's easy to root for because you see the effort and the love for the game is there, and you just wish well for people like that, man, because his heart, his character is all there, man. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Ira, as always, you're awesome. We'll catch you on Thursday, my friend. Thank you.
Catch you on Wednesday.
I'm sorry. That's right. That's right. The Sloman's Inside the Paint show at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And
on Friday again, maybe I'll bring my car and you can change my oil. Thank you, Big O.
There you go. You got it. Ira Winderman.